All right.
tonight, if I have not had the opportunity to meet you, my name is Lexi, and I am the Director of Girls Student Ministry here at London Bridge. I'm also Pastor Quinn's wife, and our goal here at London Bridge is to equip students. Who can tell me why? To do what? Yes, to make disciples in our neighborhoods, nation, and world. And so that is our mission here. That's what we're here for. And so tonight we're going to have a fun game. It looks very interesting. I had to go buy some balloons to see why I have to do that. And then we're going to have some worship, and we're going to hear an awesome message, and then we're going to break out into small group time. I think that's everything I have for you guys.
All right, what is up, guys? All right, so we are going to do this super awesome, fantastic, mind-blowing, breathtaking, literally, game. See what I did there? I get it. I literally just came up with that like right now. All right, so hold up. These are not animal crackers. These are called balloons. All right, so what's going to happen with this is you see these, I think it's 10 cups. You're going to blow up a balloon, and you have to use that air to knock each of these cups off the table. Everybody go, ooh, it landed, that's crazy. Go, everybody go, ooh. Go, ah. All right, so we are going to have a couple contestants depending on how much time we have. So, and this is a time thing, so I'm going to time it on my phone to see who gets through it the fastest. Whoever wins gets the grand prize. Oh, everybody go, ooh. And go, ah. All right, so who wants to be my first contestant on The Price is Right? Butcher, you can come up. All right, Leah Butcher, here is your weapon. All right. So when I say go, we are actually going to count down 3, 2, 1, and go. On go, you are going to start, and your goal is to get all of these to cross the other side of the table. She is winning this. Oh, she lost her balloon. Alright, we might switch it to just a minute and see how many cups you can get off of the table. So Leah, you got 20 seconds left to get as many off the table as possible. Come on, Leah, everybody cheer on. Go, Leah, 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 Leah. Use that one, what do you got? And she got it, she got 4. And she landed it, so bonus points. Go! Alright. Here's your weapon. Alright. So you have a minute to blow as many off as possible. Cars, speed it. Oh, Connor's got a little message out. He's only at 23 seconds. Trying to get the last one. Make sure it goes across the table. There we go. 31.95 seconds. Connor, remember this number. That is your number. Can you stack those cups for me? All right. Jordan has high hopes. Gotta be third. Oh, Jordan with a lot of hot air. Oh. You got 28 seconds. You got past Connor's time. Let's see if you can finish into this. Come on, Jordan. It's broken. How do you press it? Now go across the table. You are doing great. You got 8 seconds left in the rest. Come on, Jordan. Yes, put them on. Connor made it look really easy. Zach, do you think you can beat him? He said, not really. But there is hope. Through God, all things are possible, even blowing a cup across the table. All right, Zach, you have a minute to win it. Good luck. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, got a good little pace going. Let's see. Oh, he's got a lot of hot air. Here we go. He's a speedy guy. Very nice, very nice. Holy cow, he has a chance. You get this $10 gift card. Yes, Chick-fil-A. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was his age, my mom still paid for my Chick-fil-A. So. All right, now I honestly just want to see if I can do this, because we do have a little bit of time left. All right. So I am gonna give this a little try. I don't know if this is my balloon or not, so we're gonna put this over here. Alright, so here we go. Connor, I'm going to need you to be my timer. Alright? So here we go. But all the glory goes to God. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and do our little group prayer, our loving prayer. So go ahead and get some little groups, and we are going to be just praying over each other, over everything that you guys are going through. Get deep, get open. All right, we got a couple of minutes. All right, and we're going to bring it back. I'll pray with everyone. All right. go ahead and finish up, but we are going to move on. So dear Lord, just thank you for allowing us to be here together today, just to glorify you and worship you during this time. Thank you for just giving us this opportunity during COVID just to meet up when others aren't able to. Please just pray that all of us are able to overcome all the things that we are going through, and remember that our story is our story. We need to claim it as our own and claim you as our own, Lord. Please allow us just to accept everything that we're going to be learning today and just to apply it to our lives and turning our hearts of stone into hearts of flesh. Lord, just please allow us to just seek you and pursue you in everything that we're doing, whether it's in school or sports or studies or whatever it is, Lord. Allow us to look for you and look for that light, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen. All right, guys, go ahead and stand, and we are going to start to worship.
Hello, everybody. We're excited to worship with you. Start off with one that we've done with you guys before. It's called
broke the curse for our freedom. Oh, Jesus, you alone. You rose from death with the morning, and you'll come again in your glory. Oh, Jesus, you alone. Oh,
Cry out, holy. Worthy, all creation. Knock out our distractions, Lord. Help us to just put everything away that's happened earlier today and just to really focus in on you and how holy and how worthy you are. So God, we love you. We're excited for what you have in store. In your name we pray. Amen.
Good to see you guys tonight, and I believe this is one of the best parts of the week where we get to gather together and grow together in God's Word. And so, man, I just came up here and knocked over like a $1,000 iPad, and somehow it still came up uncracked. So that's a miracle. That's pretty cool. Well, anyways, guys, as you guys can see, we are continuing our series called Relationship Goals. Everybody say relationship goals. We're talking about the goals that it's the relationships as far as singleness, dating, purity, the way that God designed it. There's a lot of different things you hear in the world when it comes to those things, but there's no way to do it like the way God says to do it. And that's what this whole series is all about. And just to give you guys a little recap, last week we talked about singleness. We talked about how singleness is not a curse, but it's a gift, right? It's something that we can be thankful for God to really use to build us up into who He wants us to be. And so here's what I have. I know Valentine's Day is coming up, and so I actually have these flowers. And what I want to do, I know you guys don't have any idea what this is for, but trust me, there's a point to it. But basically, I have this rose, all right, and I'm going to give it to you, and I just want y'all to go around, smell it, touch it, feel it, And then when it goes back to my wife, Lexi, if you can give it to me when I call for it at the end of the message, you'll come and bring it up to me. All right, so y'all just pass it around. Y'all can continue to listen to me. Don't worry about that right now. There's a point to it. You'll see the point of it at the end. But just smell it, touch it, feel it, do whatever you want with it, and then give it to Lex at the end, okay? So, as we are passing around the rows, I just want to know how many of y'all would consider yourselves a germaphobe? Like you don't like germs, like you're washing your hands constantly 24/7. Okay, so nobody. Wow, man. Well, it's crazy how as soon as COVID hits, everybody becomes a germaphobe, right? And so honestly, outside of COVID, I've never really been a huge germaphobe. Like, yeah, I wash my hands and stuff like that, but I'm not constantly paying attention to germs 24/7 because who has time for that, right? And so, but the one thing that does kind of gross me out is nasty food. I don't know if y'all have ever had some nasty food with the germs in it, but there was one point in my life, not too long ago actually, where I went with my wife to Mezza's, and we go to Mezza's. It's Mediterranean food. Has anybody ever been there? Anybody ever been to Mezza's? Wow, dang, I guess that's like a Hampton over-the-water type thing. Well, anyways, we go to Mezza's. It's a Mediterranean food place, and usually it's pretty good. They have really healthy selections of food to get. But we get in there, and I realize that like none of these workers are wearing hairnets. So that was kind of the first red light. Like, why are y'all not wearing hairnets? So we sit down. We're eating. And next thing I know, my wife is eating her food, and like there's this strand of hair that just comes up. And I'm like, okay, we need to get you some new food because that's disgusting, right? Anybody ever find food in their hair in their food before? Yeah, that's pretty nasty. And so what made it even weird is like she just kept eating it. I'm like, why are you still eating it even after there's hair in it? And then next thing I know, there was another piece of hair in the food in the same bowl. I'm like, y'all, I got to talk to the manager. And so I go up to the manager to find out that the manager's not even there. They just got customers working with no accountability, probably why they weren't wearing hairnets in the first place. And I said, I need to talk to the manager. And so they gave me the phone number, and of course the manager didn't pick up. But trust me, I left a very bad review on Yelp. I said, don't nobody ever go to this Hampton. I'm letting y'all know right now, do not go to the Hampton Mezza, okay? That's a no-no place. They don't wear hairnets. You'll find hair in your food. But it was just so disgusting to me, when I find that. And that's not the first time that's happened, by the way. There have been times where I've been eating slices of pizza and like strands of hair would just come out as I'm pulling the bite out of my mouth, right? It's pretty nasty. And usually those places are places you never want to go back to. But here's what I do know. Food is a lot more enjoyable when you know that it's clean, right? When you know that there's nothing in there that's going to contaminate the food or make you sick. You feel a lot more comfortable eating that food, right? And the same thing is true when it comes to relationships, right? When you're going to enjoy your relationships a lot more when you know that they're clean, when you know that the person that you're marrying has kept himself for you, or the girl that you're marrying has kept herself for you, right? They're pure. And so here is the bottom line, and I'm going to break this down a little more as we go through our message today. Here's the bottom line for today. It's simply this, is that purity leads to intimacy. Purity leads to intimacy. Now, purity, by the way, as we go into this message, I want to let y'all know this is just one of those messages where we're going to have to put on our big boy pants, right? We're going to have to be a little mature. I know middle schoolers, this is going to be a lot for you, but this is my challenge for y'all. Y'all can get through this. I know you can. My challenge is, man, let's put on our maturity pants. We're going to say one word, and I'm going to let y'all get your giggles out, but after that, that's it, okay? We're going to pay attention and zone in the rest of the time, right? So purity means free from contamination, right? Free from contamination, free from immorality, free from sin. And another word for intimacy, in other words, physical intimacy, this is the word, I'm going to let y'all get your laughs out, is sex. That's the word, man. Wow, y'all took that a lot better than I thought you would. I thought y'all would go crazy, but I'm glad y'all are a little mature, right? So, Another word for physical intimacy is sex, and I know that you guys know what that is, because otherwise you wouldn't be here, because I texted all your parents today letting them know, hey, I'm going to be telling your students about this, so if you don't want them to hear it, don't come. And so we're going to be in the book of Solomon, Song of Solomon. Has anybody ever read that book before? Anybody ever read the book of Song of Solomon? Well, let me give you a little clue of what it's about. This word right here, right? It's all about love. It's about relationships. It's about physical intimacy. It's really a dialogue of two different people who are just in this romantic. The best way I can explain it is it's almost. Actually, no, I probably wouldn't say The Bachelor, but it's like this romantic dialogue between two people who are romantically in love with one another, and they are talking about each other in very specific ways. But it's kind of confusing if you don't understand what kind of literature this is. So for all my literature people, does anybody know what an allegory is? Anybody know what an allegory is? Allegory, I don't even know if I said it right. Allegory. Okay, so we know a few people. So an allegory is a story or a poem that reveals a hidden meaning, right? It's a story or a poem that reveals a hidden meaning. And there's a lot of hidden meaning in the Song of Solomon, right? There's a lot of words that are being used, and really they're portraying different imageries. There's metaphors. There's a lot of different things where if you don't really look into it, it's honestly not going to make sense. There's people who even make up pickup lines like, hey man, I wish my wife's teeth were like a flock of goats, which is never a pickup line you should ever use on anybody, but it's true. They use this language in this poem. And so based on Song of Solomon, man, I want to talk about three different ways that we can be pure when it comes to intimacy with our future spouse. And the first thing you got to understand is when it comes to purity and when it comes to intimacy, especially in the context of sex, is you have to save it for marriage. I love acronyms because they're pretty. I mean, they help us have a better understanding of what's going on. But you got to save it for marriage, right? That's the first thing. Here's what Solomon says. By the way, anybody know who Solomon is? Remember Solomon? He's the guy where God is like, hey, you can have anything you want, anything in the world. And what did Solomon ask for? Wisdom, right? And so this is the Solomon who's writing this romantic story and this dialogue between these two lovers, right? He says, listen, he says, you are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed in a sealed fountain. Now, first off, what I love about this language is the way that he sees his bride, right? This person sees his bride, before he even sees her as a bride, he sees her as a what? As a sister, right? Now, let me ask you this. When it comes to, dating someone, actually just think about your sibling. You would probably, you may kiss them, on the forehead or something, but you would never have sexual intercourse with your brother or sister because that's just weird, right? Now, it happened in the Old Testament, but it certainly doesn't need to be happening now, although that's kind of where the culture is moving, unfortunately. But it's still weird, right? That's a little weird, and that's how we should see people before we marry them, right? We should not be giving other people the benefits that you only get in marriage when you're not even married yet, right? And so I love how he sees this woman. He says, hey, you're my sister, you're my bride. She's not even married yet, but she's going to become his bride. Now look at the different words that he uses. He uses different phrases like garden locked up. You are a spring enclosed. You are a sealed fountain. And kind of the theme that I see in here is like this woman was very closed off. She wasn't giving her body to any and everybody in the world, right? She saved herself for one person, right? In other words, she was a virgin, right? A lot of people say, man, the Bible doesn't say nothing about virginity. I'm reading it to you right now, right? She's a sealed fountain. She has never, no one outside of the man that she was going to marry, she was not going to give herself to. And I think one important thing, that you got to understand is that's not how culture sees sex today. In fact, I'm going to be really honest with you. I went to I used to do middle school visits at my last church, and this is so sad. But one time I went to a table, and one of my middle school students, now keep in mind, very secular, very lost, they said, Pastor Quinn. I said, what? He said, are you a virgin? I said, yeah. They're like, whoa, that's so weird. And unfortunately, sex in today's culture is just the norm. Like, if you tell people that you're a virgin, they think you're weird, right? They're like, man, why aren't you like everybody else? Like, it's just so different. Like, back in the day, whatever back in the day for me means, right? You know, that wasn't even a question. You know, it's like, yes, this is what the Bible says. Don't do it. Now it's like, yeah, if that's who you are, go ahead and do it. You know, love is love. It's all good. Like, do you. You know, that's kind of the motto of today's culture, but that's not necessarily biblical, right? And so, you know, you got to understand that what God says and what culture says about sex are two completely different things. And what God wants you to see is what His Word says, not what the world says. You know, sex is ultimately, it's made for the context. By the way, I think a lot of people think sex is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing when it's used in the right context. It's a bad thing when it's used outside of the context that God designed it for, which is marriage. Because when you use it outside of its original design, guess what? Sex almost becomes worthless. You know, because then you get with the person you want to marry, and it's like, hey, guess what? I'm doing with you what I did with 3 other people, and that doesn't feel special at all. Right? It just takes away the significance of it. In 1 Corinthians 7 verse 2 it says, but because of temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman should have her own husband. In other words, Paul is saying, man, that the cure to these sexual desires is simply to get married, right? It's not just to sleep with anybody and everybody. And I know right now y'all are in middle school and high school, so right now y'all are not really ready to get married. So for you, it might look like, man, I need to get some accountability in my life, right? I need to start spending more time or tell somebody that is really trustworthy so that this is not an issue. But I love, Josh McDowell says it like this. Josh McDowell, he says, if the Bible's message on sex before marriage were obeyed, there would be far fewer sexually transmitted diseases, far fewer abortions, far fewer unwed mothers and unwanted pregnancies, far fewer children growing up without both parents in their lives. Abstinence, right, which is life, sex before marriage, not having sex before marriage. Abstinence is God's only policy when it comes to sex before marriage. Abstinence saves lives, protects babies, gives relationships the proper value, and most importantly, it honors God. That's one of the biggest reasons why we're called to be pure, why we're called to save sex for marriage, is because at the end of the day, it honors God, right? If this is something, Jesus says, He says, hey, if you love me, follow my commands. And so if you're living your life outside of the context in which God's created it for, you really got to ask yourself, do I really love God? Because if you really love God, you're going to do whatever you can to honor Him with your life and to honor Him with your body. Because at the end of the day, if you're a Christian, your body is not your own. Your body belongs to God, which means we should honor Him in everything that we do. But another thing you have to understand when it comes to intimacy with your future spouse is it starts by, and we talked about this last week, starts by embracing your singleness. Embracing your singleness. I love what Solomon says in this next verse. Here's what he says. Oh, I think I missed a page. Where am I at? I'm lost. Here we go. All right, here's what he says. He says, daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you by the gazelles and by the dews of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires, right? Now, some of y'all may be thinking, what in the world is a gazelle? What is a dew? Those are basically just like animals that look like deers, basically, right? Like an antelope or something. So, anyways, so she said, do not arouse or awaken love until it devours. In other words, by the way, this is a Shulamite woman, and she is describing the importance of waiting on love. Now, waiting is a big deal because we live in a culture that does not like to wait. We live in a microwave world where we got to have it right now. If a boy looks cute, I got to have him right now. If she looks cute, I got to have her right now. But she's saying that love is worth waiting for. Don't arouse or awaken love until it so desires. I would rather wait for the right one than rush for the wrong one. And I think a lot of times we don't want God's best, so we we rush to get something that's mediocre just so we can be temporarily satisfied for a season. Then when a breakup happens, now you're all jacked up, right? Because you didn't want to wait. But waiting is not a bad thing. Waiting is a season where you get to embrace your singleness, where God gets to do something in you to prepare you to be that man or woman of God that He wants you to be. And a lot of times our view in waiting, and the reason that we don't wait is because our flesh wants things that are so superficial, right? I want him because he looks good. I want him because he's cute. She's cute, he looks good, he's nice, blah, 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 blah. God says, hey, man looks at the outward appearance, but I look at the heart. So the number one problem is we aren't even looking for the things that God is looking at. We're looking at all this superficial stuff that's eventually going to fade away, because she might look good at 18, but she won't look the same way at 72. Those nice curves are going to turn into some wrinkles, and that's just the reality of life, right? The older you get, the more wrinkly you get, right? And so that's just life. Beauty is always going to fade. But I did some statistics just because I want you to see and understand why embracing your singleness is so important. I did some statistics on middle and high school relationships. And the statistics say that most relationships that happen in high school and middle school, only 8% of those relationships actually end up in marriage. And out of those 8% of relationships that end up in marriage, 95% of those relationships end up in divorce. So what does that say about middle school and high school relationships? They don't really work. And there's multiple reasons for that. But I mean, when you look at the statistics, it's almost like it's not even working. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. I didn't say all relationships are like that. I know there's been some high school sweethearts and they got married, but that's very rare in comparison to the people that it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen to most people, right? And the reality is, when you look at statistics, most marriages are successful, around the mid-20s age. And that's because it takes time for your brain to develop. And fortunately for you ladies, your brain actually develops a lot quicker than guys do, right? Y'all are fully mature at like 22. For guys, it takes until they're like 26 before they're mature. So if you've ever dated a guy and you thought, man, he's so immature, that's why. They're not fully developed yet, right? You guys are not fully developed and ready to even handle what it takes to make a marriage work at such a young age. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's just unwise to use your time to be in it right now when you have so much more to do in your life. And so rather than being led by your emotions in your single season, you need to be led by Jesus in your single season, right? Jesus can take you much farther than your emotions can ever take you, right? I think sometimes we get this emotional love rush. You get the heart eye, emoji eyes. You're like, oh gosh, she's so fine. I'm going to go for her, or I'm going to go for him. And it's like, it's all emotional, but like the emotions fade. They don't stay forever, but God does. So make sure that God is your foundation, that He's the one that you're seeking. That's what it says in Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So your single season, the best way to embrace your singleness is to embrace God in your singleness. That's the best thing you can do. And even when you're married, you still got to embrace God, because He's the only one who can keep it together, right? And so embrace your single season. Don't be led by your emotions. Be led by Jesus. Now, the last thing that you guys got to understand is when it comes, and this is probably the most important point, when it comes to staying pure, if you want to be intimate with your future spouse, is you have to X out now what will ruin you later. You got to X out now what will ruin you later. Here's what Solomon says. I'm going to break this down because I know this is a little confusing. He says in verse 15, chapter 2, he says, catch for us the foxes. Man, I'm thinking of that one song, that one annoying song. What did the fox say? Okay. Anyways, moving on. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards. Our vineyards that are in bloom. Now, does anybody know what a vineyard is? Anybody know what a vineyard is? Okay. So y'all know what it is. So it's like basically a garden, grows grapes, you turn them into wine, that type of thing. And so basically these vineyards is really a metaphor for marriage. It's a metaphor for being in a relationship. And what he's saying is that there are these foxes that can come in and destroy a marriage. They can come in and destroy a relationship, and so they're trying to keep the foxes out. If they get in, things are going to get bad, right? Now, based on this passage that I'm reading, how big are the foxes? How big are the foxes? They're little. They're little foxes. And here's the principle that you must understand when it comes to a relationship. The little things that you do not deal with now will ruin you later. The little things, not the big things that you do not deal with now will ruin you later. Now, I'm going to break that down because there's a lot of little things that can mess you up if you don't deal with them now that you can bring into your marriage. One of those things is pornography. This is a little thing that people deal with before they even step into a marriage, right? And when you think about, I don't know if you guys know about the science of pornography and how it works, but there's a chemical in your brain called dopamine. Everybody say dopamine. It's the chemical that gives you pleasure anytime that you involve yourself in pornography. And what happens is that dopamine opens your brain pathways. Every time you do it, it opens up even more and more. And it actually drives you back to it every time. So anytime you feel lonely, you go to pornography. Anytime you feel stressed out, you go to pornography. Anytime you feel like you're depressed, you go. It's an addiction, right? It's a drug. It's basically a drug, you know? And to be honest, this is something that I dealt with. From the time I was in middle school all the way to the time that I was in college, this was an addiction that I struggled with for a long time. And I just remember anytime that I would look at it, I would look in the mirror and I would literally hate myself because I would ask God to forgive me just to fail him the next day. And it was like this cycle that kept going, and it's like I did not know how to stop. No matter what I did, I didn't know how to stop. And it wasn't honestly until I got into college where I realized that there were other people who were struggling with the same thing that I was struggling with. And so we started an accountability group. And really, the accountability wasn't working at first until something came to my mind. Something, God hit me, Spirit put something on my heart that I'd never thought about before. And it was that pornography doesn't just affect me. I thought about how I had a desire to be a future husband. And I didn't want to bring that junk into my marriage. I thought about how I had a desire to be a future father. And I wanted to be someone who led my kids by example. I didn't want them to ever find that out about their dad. Sure, that's my past, but that doesn't have to be my destiny. I thought about my ministry and how I could easily get disqualified for something as little as this because I'm not living above reproach. And sometimes we don't even think about other things like sex trafficking. People don't even understand that when they look at pornography, you're actually feeding in financially to sex trafficking. Little girls who get picked up and they're used as slaves and they're raped, and most of the videos that you watch, they are girls who are being sex trafficked. And we're feeding into that every time that we look at pornography. And so when I realized that, I was like, okay, this has to stop. Because this is going to ruin my future. Like, if I don't X this out now, it's going to ruin my life later. It's going to ruin my marriage later. It's going to ruin me being a father later. So I cannot carry this in my life anymore. When I came to that realization, man, I got accountability in my life. I spent time in the Word. And it took me, I had to learn how to love God more than my sin. Now, I'm not saying temptation never happens in my life. I still get tempted. There were times where I would go to the gym, and unfortunately, there's a lot of girls who still wear inappropriate things. And it's like, no matter where you look, they're there. You can't really avoid it. And so, like, even right now, like, one of the reasons I even have a gym in my own house is because I don't even want to put myself in a situation where I have to be tempted to look at things outside of my wife. Right? So temptation is still real. It's a battle. It's a battle every day, but it's a battle worth fighting. right? I'm telling you, when you stick at it and you continue to make Jesus a priority of your life and you get real, genuine accountability, and those are things that's going to help you break that addiction. And if that's you today, I want to let you know I'm here to help. Lex is here to help the ladies. I'm here to help the guys. Man, I've had multiple people that I have counseled through the addiction of pornography. And even to this day, you know, they still struggle, but they're a lot better now than where they were then. I'm not saying that for my glory. I'm saying that for the glory of God, because that's what He does when you get real accountability in your life. But it's not just pornography that'll ruin your marriage. It's other things, right? It's the little things that you don't get rid of that'll ruin you later. Like even TV, right? The things you all watch on TV. I mean, the culture is just trying to ingrain you in so many negative, sinful things. It's Netflix, right? It's TV. It's Netflix. I don't know if y'all knew this, but they have like a satanic movie on Netflix now. They have this one movie where they're using little children as cheerleaders and transgender stuff. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And then you got social media, right? Y'all scroll through social media. Some of y'all see, oh man, that guy is shirtless, or oh man, this girl's in a bikini, or whatever it may look like, right? That's a little thing. But if you just little things always become big things, right? If you keep at it, it's like a snowball, right? You get a snowball on top of the hill, and the more it rolls down, what happens? The bigger it gets, right? Same thing happens with the little things. The more you look at it, the more that you put your attention on it, the bigger it gets until it is so big that you can't even see the sin that's in your own life. You know, it's almost like David and Bathsheba. He didn't even realize what he did until somebody had to confront him. When Nathan, he was like, hey bro, I'm telling you, he repented hard and he turned from that. It's the little things like movies, right? Some of y'all watch really inappropriate movies. I'm not saying everybody, but it's very easy to watch movies that are just inappropriate. It's inappropriate video games, right? It's video games. I'm not saying every video game is bad, but man, when you talk about video games like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that, anything that's a little too mature for you, later. But it's not just what you music is another. It's all mind. Treasure. If I Better for you to enter a life with one eye than have two eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. Now, is Jesus really saying to gouge out your eyes? Is he really saying to cut off your hands? He's not saying that. He's saying if there's anything in your life that is hindering your relationship with the Lord, cut it out. Exit out. It's not worth it. Right? So for some of y'all, that means, man, I got to turn my smartphone into a dummy phone because there's just so much temptation every time I get. Some of y'all may need to do that. Some of y'all need to. Try to even when I felt just as the enemy done. Still love. And he chooses that even good to get in all oh, hug. Y'all, all this stuff. This is not in Christ. Jesus, as you, but Jesus place. I'm convicted. The problem. Wants so many living in it. I'm looking at me. How much he loves to help you. He doesn't your history does not all the how can I continue my depression that for me? That's where God I'm broken. I need your own words. Just is that rose. I feel like nobody would ever. While I'm a